Okay, here we are with Mom and Dad. We're at the farm again. It's the 22nd of January, 2019, and we're going to talk a little bit about Alaska and some of the different variety of things that we did in Alaska.
Yeah. We had 14 Eskimo villages that we did and took care of, and most of the time I had a native assistant that traveled with us, and we would go by whatever means we could, bush plane quite often, and we also transferred by dog team and by skidoo travel.
Snow machines were brand new.
Yeah, they were, but they did have some. But even Talmadge was able to ride on the dog team on a couple of transfers that we had down in by Unalakleet there. I remember a couple of villages there that. Anyway, and we would do all of the school children we would line them up and did fluoride on their teeth, and we taught usually 2 or 3 of the older girls in the school how to put the fluoride on the teeth.
How to apply and
yeah, and then we examined when the school children were in school. We would examine all the preschoolers in the whole villages, everyone, and also the adults. We would do them.
Those were at nighttime.
At night.
We would examine them at night.
And it was only coming in once a year. That was the only time. And so it was a big thing, big deal for the villagers. And they would all show up and be seated kind of like watching a movie.
yeah.
They would all be seated there.
On the floor, honey. They didn't have chairs.
Yeah.
They would just sit on the floor.
And where would you do that? Was it at the school?
Always at the school. They have a large room at the school for movies and things.
Okay.
And plus we did show movies. We had some dental movies that we would show on how to take care of them. And I remember this one village we went into, and Mom remembered it too. It's this little one preschooler, 3-4 years old, and all the front teeth were rotted totally out. And it took me a little bit of time to figure out how that could happen, and we found out that the nurses in years past, some of the nurses came in and taught them how to save the babies by fortifying the milk with sugar and things, sweetening it and everything, and so the little babies get used to it, and they're on the bottle all the time, and that puts sugar on those teeth all the time.
Was the mortality bad then? Is that what the deal was, or
it used to be? But I'm not saying it was bad to lose the teeth as much, because maybe they're saving the babies now.
yeah.
But anyway, it rotted the baby teeth out, and so I remember this one picture we took of a little baby, 3 maybe years old.
Oh, less than that, honey. It was less
And
than that.
all the front teeth were totally rotted out, so there were just holes. And the root was still there, and we had to pull them because the baby cries all the time.
Yeah.
With draining the abscesses on 6 teeth at one time. And so we had to pull them and hope that the permanent teeth would come in straight, because baby teeth do help guide permanent teeth in the eruption. Well, anyway, we had a lot of different experiences in visiting with these villages. Sometimes I remember one village out on St. Lawrence Island, they had dug a way to get into the house where we were going to be. They didn't have a school or anything, and so we
When you say dug away
away the door.
Snow.
Oh, so much snow.
So that there was snow here and snow there, and you were walking through here because they had cleaned it out. And I'm sure they've had to do that periodically because the snow never melts. And, it'll start snowing in October, 1st of October, or even earlier, and then it never melts for 9 months. So you had 9 months of winter, and 1 month of spring, and 1 month of summer, and 1 month of fall, and that was it. And it's interesting, you still had mosquitoes on that 1 month. In the summer, you'd still. But
And
anyway,
the mosquitoes were bad.
Oh, only during this the spring thaw. You know, they were bad. I don't know. I guess the mosquitoes learn to adapt to that kind of weather. But
Well, and the way you had to dress, you never did wear shorts, basically,
yeah,
or
couldn't get bit.
go around with just no shirts on, or not a t-shirt or anything like that. And so,
I remember this one time we were so tired of it being so cold for so long that it went up to 10 degrees and we took a picnic out on the beach.
that was
And-
right in Nome too. It
Right
wasn't
in-
in,
Yeah, that was right in Nome. We were just so tired of being so cold.
Cooped up.
Yeah,
up,
and when it warmed up to 10 above, we have pictures of you, Chad, throwing rocks into the ocean, and Todd throwing rocks, and Daphne there on the log and eating marshmallows and wieners, and we had
built a
wiener.
fire, and
Yeah,
that's what we ate was our marshmallows
and a
other
dumb
food.
dog came around and bothered,
Daphne.
especially Daphne. We kept her in the bassinet type of thing, and but we took out. But it gave you an idea of how miserable it is. 9 months of cold winter months, and it gets so cold that when the movie came out there, and I mentioned that on another video, but we have pictures of D8 cats, and that's the big ones, out on the ice, a half a mile out on the ocean, cutting in roads out there to make this so-called little town out there. And a school bus, this is full-size school bus, all full, totally full of adults going out to it, driving on these roads that it made on the ice. And that's how thick it gets.
This is on the ocean.
On the ocean, half mile out to sea. It's hard to believe that the ocean would freeze that much.
Wow, that's just amazing. So tell me some of the cities that you went to in Alaska. Some of the, I should say
golly.
cities, towns. You
Towns.
mentioned
Yeah.
Unalakleet.
Unalakleet and Golovin,
Elam,
Koyuk,
White Mountain.
White Mountain,
Kotzebue. Did you go to Kotzebue?
Kotzebue.
That's it completely in a different area.
Point Wales, and then we even King Island Village. The King Islanders were out on an island called King Island, and they had all come in. The majority of them had come in to be next to Nome, and they were making good money dancing for the tour guide, the tours that would come in, and they put on a good show to go out to King Island, and so that's one of the major stops.
Now, have you mentioned and talked about Willie and Virginia Brown at all?
Yeah,
out there,
and yes, we have. And Willie was the tour guide,
right,
and owned the theater. We talked about that, but he was a good talker. Willie was really a talker,
good salesperson.
And he'd have a school bus is what he ran for the tours.
He would go to the airport and pick them up at the airport when they'd come in on the big planes. He'd go to the airport to pick them up, and then he would take them on the tour of Nome and
I don't know how much it cost.
Little Diomede or Big Diomede Island for the King, the Eskimos.
Oh,
Now is that the island that was off of Nome, fairly close, or was that
No,
St. Lawrence?
you can see it. You can see it, but it's quite a ways off.
Okay.
But
Little Diomede is right there in Nome.
Well, no, it's
Or just a little way. Well, we at least
you have
called
to go
them
to
that
Point
when they would do their
Wales. You'd
their
have to go
little
out to the point to
performances.
see those islands. But
And how far was that from Nome?
30 miles or so.
Okay.
We think. I'd have to look at a map and see
Okay.
because I don't know.
Okay.
Well, back to when we were traveling, I went this one time, and we were scared to death because I was pregnant. I was pregnant with Meredith. And plus, I really didn't have in the real, we didn't have a lot of real warm, protective, type of clothing.
Like the Eskimos did.
Like the Eskimos did. Their coats and things were usually made out of the skin of the animals, fur of the animals, inside out. And then they had regular, what we wore too, Sears and Roebuck or the Eddie Bauer in
Yeah,
Anchorage.
I bought mine all at Eddie Bauer and had them shipped in, and so I was warm.
That was your big coat
Yeah.
with the fox fur or whatever.
Yeah, with a ruff here, and it had wolf and then the fox.
Okay.
The fox doesn't collect the
frost.
the frost
That's
as
another
much,
good.
but your nose will plug up usually.
When you breathe in the moisture and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so that was my biggest concern, that I would, could have problems because I was pregnant, and plus I really wasn't. So I rode in the sled all the time. The big.
She'd sit in the
the
sled
dog
and then
in-
go. It was a rough ride.
Yeah.
It's just by sitting in the sled doesn't make it smooth.
Yeah, because the
way
the snow is not
is-
smooth either, like you would think.
Right,
It's not a
right,
blanket
it's not-
of snow that's soft and whatever. It's
yeah,
it's hard.
slumpy, bumpy.
And the dogs are trotting pretty fast,
yeah.
so it is not a smooth ride.
And it's not walking; it's running. It's the
The
When you
dogs.
jump
the
off the
dogs
back,
are running. They're really running, and the driver is on there also, on the back, on the legs of the
the runners.
runners of
Uh-huh.
that.
I remember it. I remember at Shishmaref, I was
There was another name we didn't hear. Shishma.
Yeah, Shishmaref.
Yeah.
Yes.
when we were watching them hook up a team, taking pictures of them, getting the dogs around, and the dogs just yelled and yelled. They know they're going to get to run.
Excuse me.
That's what they
They're
want to
bred
do.
to run. And when he finally got the last dog on, because they were pulling and pulling and pulling, but he had the brake on, which is kind of a fork-like thing in the back that he presses on, and makes it so that they like an anchor almost. And
They can't pull.
well, anyway, he says move back, and I didn't know why, but boy, when he pulled that up, I mean, they took off and shot out of there, and no wonder he said get back. They would run right over you. They go so fast when they full get out and want to go.
So now let's talk about the dogs. Were they big dogs, or they?
No.
Were you surprised at the
Well,
size
a
of the dogs?
medium-sized dog.
They were medium sized. They weren't the little dogs, the
Uh-huh.
house dogs. They
Yeah.
were, but they were bred to pull and most of them were the huskies.
Okay.
But they.
They told us not to get in the midst of them when they are not running.
Yeah.
They're all hooked up.
Separate, because they're pretty aggressive.
Yeah, and every year they would lose a little child that wandered in among them. They've got them staked out so that they can't get at each other. They're
Far enough away,
Yeah.
that they can't hurt each other.
so that one dog can't get at another dog and fight. So they're staked out special. And if a child wandered in among them, that's when they get
Could be
into trouble.
dangerous.
Because little child.
And you would hear that periodically. What you say about once a year?
Yeah.
You get news that somebody is.
Yeah,
Lost
that's
But
all
worse
true.
than that would be the alcohol was bad. In fact, a couple of 3 villages were really bad. The churches came in early, at the turn of the century, I think it was, or right after. And they divided up the villages, the missionary churches divided up the villages. And so they wouldn't proselyte against each other in one village. And so a village was all one church.
Mm.
And you'd go to the next village and it'd be a...
Lutheran, Methodist,
But they were
Baptist, or
grouped
whatever.
in... So that I would go to a couple of different churches, and then the Swedish Covenant churches were very good. But then when I got to the 2 that were Catholic, I mean, they had alcohol problems and welfare problems really bad.
Mm.
I had that one village, I remember, everybody in the village was on welfare except 2 families, all but 2. Whereas some of the other villages tried very hard, like Koyuk and Elam, they tried very, very hard to stay off of welfare because they knew what it did to the kids and the families. But anyway,
There usually was a school teacher and his wife or husband, whichever, and sometimes, very seldom were they both teachers. Usually one or the other was the school teacher. And so that's kind of where everybody congregated, and that's where we went and stuff like that.
Very good.